Hello, everyone, and welcome back to My Opinion. And I know there's been a huge, kind of a long gap between this video and my last. And it's kind of because I haven't really been able to watch much cricket off late. And it's kind of because it's actually harder to watch a 4 a.m. start than it is to stay up late at 11:30 p.m. and maybe watch a session. And yeah, I think that especially with, I've watched probably half of the India versus New Zealand test, but I don't think I would have been able to provide a good review with what I watched. And even if you look at the Ashes, for example, where I watched the first session if it starts at 11:30, or for example in the day night one I watch the last session and a half. So because of the fact I'm not able to watch the full day's play, I think it'll be quite difficult for me, or would have been quite difficult for me, to provide a good review of those games. But I don't think that should be the problem here because it starts at I think 8 o'clock in the morning at UK time, so I'll be able to watch the full thing. And yeah, so India's tour of South Africa. So India last toured South Africa in 2018 and lost the Test series 2-1. Now both these teams have gone in a different direction since then, and India has kind of grown from strength to strength. And if you look at the last series in 2018 and also the tour of England a few months later, I wasn't really surprised that India lost those series, despite the fact that they have the resources that they have now. I just think that they were kind of getting used to their team. They hadn't really been able to go to those countries with those kind of resources before. And it shows that despite the fact that they lost, well, on aggregate, they lost 6-2. But yet they played great cricket, I thought, on many occasions. And overall, I would say they probably outbowled the two home attacks that they were coming up against. And so yeah, with that kind of a good base that India had, I think they've only built on that in the last 3 years, and now they are basically a juggernaut. And it shows that they've won in Australia when no one thought they could, especially after the start they had. Then they won in what was it? Well, they're leading in England right now, and then with the momentum they've got from those two away series, I think that they'll be coming to South Africa quite confident, and I think they'll be really disappointed if they don't win the series. Then there's South Africa, who quite a few big names have retired since the 2018 series. You have Faf du Plessis, AB de Villiers, Hashim Amla, Dale Steyn, Vernon Philander, and Morne Morkel. So it's kind of the real spine of their team. And yeah, I just think that, look, they are a team in transition, but I do think that they have quite a few good players. And the one thing that you can't discount from them is that, especially with their seamers, they have a bowling attack that can trouble anyone. And I think that it would help them that they're playing at home, because I think that, yeah, with the good seam attack they have, despite the batting frailties, there'll be a challenge for any side to beat. And I actually see a similarity between them and England. And I'm saying this, that if you look at playing in both those countries, you don't, because of how hard it is to bat, you don't actually have to bat long. I just think that if you kind of churn out a few runs and the team overall gets to 300, and with the bowling attacks that those two teams have got, at home you kind of get away with it. And especially, I actually thought for South Africa, the turning point was in 2019 when Sri Lanka came and beat them 2-0. Because if usually what would happen is the others they'll kind of be on and off, and then Quinton de Kock will walk in, play a counter-attacking innings, and get South Africa to about 250 to 300. And then, yeah, that bowling attack would just finish the other team off. And that's how things would just go. Whereas I think since that 2019 series where Sri Lanka won, they have struggled and they've not necessarily been able to. I think with both England and with South Africa, the batting frailties have eventually, they've actually given a gateway for the visiting teams to win. And you've seen that for England especially, you've seen that against New Zealand, and you've seen that against India now as well. And even for Australia, for example, now if you look at Australia are much more likely to win in England than England are in Australia. And honestly, if the umpire had given Ben Stokes out when he played that brilliant innings at Headingley, Australia would have won that game. And yeah, I think that, yeah, 2-2. So they would have won the series. So I just think that with those two sides, their batting frailties have, and it's taken a while, but over time there's been more of a frailty in their batting, giving teams an increased gateway to win in those countries. And now you see this South Africa team in 2020, they lost to England 3-1, and yeah, I just think that they are a team under transition, but it is a team that you want to do well. They have quite a few good players, and I think you saw players like Aiden Markram and Rassie van der Dusen who are also in the test setup. And yeah, I think that they shouldn't be taken lightly by any means. Now, both sides do have an absentee each, or most notable absentees being Rohit Sharma for India and Anrich Nortje for South Africa. Now, there is, I think, Jadeja and who is it? Akshay Patel are also absent, but let's be honest, I don't think they would have played that much of a part in kind of helping India win in South Africa anyway. But I'm saying that out of Rohit Sharma and Anrich Nortje, if you ask me who I think a team is going to miss, I think it will be Anrich Nortje for South Africa, because if you look at the bench for India, it is still quite a strong one. Whereas if you look at the bench for South Africa, there are quite a few players people who don't watch South Africa regularly, they won't really know. And with Anrich Nortje not being there, they still have a pretty good attack. I mean, Rabada, Ngidi, and a guy who returned from the Kolpak deal he was on, Duan Olivier. When I saw him before, he was a good bowler, and I'm sure he's still good now. And so, yeah. That's still quite a good trio even without Anrich Nortje, but I think Anrich Nortje would have still given that extra edge. And yeah, so coming to team selection now, I think that it's fairly... There is a spot which I think India will have to think about, but I think the batting, the top six is fairly straightforward for me. I think it will be Rahul, Mayank Agarwal, Pujara, Kohli, Shreyas Iyer, Rishabh Pant, and then the only person who I think they can play is Shardul Thakur, because you're not going to play another keeper at number 7 or a batsman at number 7. You have your 4 bowlers, and yeah, I just think that 4 bowlers in this with the others not really bowling, it wouldn't be the greatest of moves. So I think that basically Thakur has to play at number 7, and then you've got your 4 bowlers. Now, as far as the spinner is concerned, now before I get to this, look, I know, look, I've seen Ashwin's kind of interview or his remarks after, well, rather recently, and he's talking about the fact that in 2019, when Kuldeep Yadav got the 6 wickets against Australia, Ravi Shastri said he was the best test spinner in Australia, overseas test spinner that India have right now, and it did affect Ashwin quite a bit. Now, personally, I understand it was his opinion, but I don't know why Ravi Shastri would say that, because look, Ashwin was injured at that time, and I don't necessarily think you can really... I understand why he said it, but this is the same Kuldeep Yadav who, in 2018, when he played the second test in Lords, Ravi Shastri admitted it was a mistake in playing him. So I understand why he said it, but yeah, I just think if with Ashwin being injured, that whole 2019, for some reason, he was labelled as out of form, and Kuldeep Yadav was labelled as being ahead of him in the pecking order, and I have no idea why, because if you don't play, and we've seen Ashwin even in the latest Australia tour, where overseas he seems to get many more injuries than he does in India. In fact, in overseas, I would say he hardly ever gets injured when he plays tests in India. Whereas in overseas, his body just doesn't seem to be able to take the demand. And so he doesn't bowl badly, but I just think that he gets, far too many injuries. And Ravi Shastri kind of, after Ashwin's remarks, kind of said, I'm not here to butter anyone's toast. And I get why he said that, and he probably isn't there to do that either. But I'm saying, yeah, I mean, this whole thing where, since Ashwin also wasn't playing in England, even though the team was winning, I certainly don't think he'll play 3 tests. He may play 1, and and the reason why I'm saying I don't think he'll play 3 tests is because in Johannesburg it's usually kind of a 5-pacer place, and so in Centurion or in Cape Town maybe, but with Virat Kohli kind of not playing him in England, where you'd think it's more conducive to balls. But I know Embuldenia kind of got a 5-for in South Africa in 2019. So nowadays, if it is dry, it is still a decent place for spinners to bowl. But Ashwin may play 1 or 2 games, but I wouldn't be surprised if he max plays one or doesn't actually play at all. I just think that if you don't play him in England, I'm not sure how we'll get that much of an opportunity in this. Maybe 2 games max. But yeah, the other thing that you could say goes in Ashwin's favour is because if you want a team that's to play against a team that's weak to spin, you could say West Indies, but also you could say South Africa. And I just think even if they are in their home conditions, if the pitch is a bit dry, Ashwin would be a huge asset on this. And so yeah, I still think that you could play him. And yeah, that's basically on India. I think that I'm not sure if Ishant Sharma is going to play straight away. Maybe Bumrah, Siraj, and Shami, and Thakur as your fourth pacer. And in that case, I wouldn't see any reason why they couldn't play Ashwin as the sole spinner. So yeah, it's still looking like a great attack, and this team will take some great effort to beat. Then there's South Africa. Now, the thing is, South Africa cannot be written off by any means. I mean, look at players like Dean Elgar, Quinton de Kock, Aiden Markram, and Rassie van der Duyn. I mean, that's a solid 4 there. You've got players like Temba Bavuma, Cyril Airy he played in the A series, and yeah, they've got some decent players. And I think that the bowling attack also, even without Nokia, you've got Rabada, who else? Rabada, Ngidi, and Duan Olivier, who can cause some serious problems. Keshav Maharaj is a reliable spinner. I still think if it is dry, he can also do something as well. He's not going to run through the opposition like Ashwin can, but I'm saying that he will be steady, and I think that he's a good spinner. And I think that if it is dry, who knows, he can come into play. And yeah, basically, I mean, if you look at both the benches, as I said before, India's bench, you could say, is much stronger than South Africa's bench. And speaking of India's bench, actually, I'm really happy he's selected. Priyank Panchal has finally been selected. Now, I actually think that it was a long time coming. He should have been selected way before, because he's been doing well for quite some time. And even though Rohit Sharma was selected to be the test opener, I actually kind of thought it almost disrespected the domestic system, because these domestic top order players being ignored, and there are so many others in India as well. And yeah, I'm very happy that he's finally been selected. He's had to wait a while. He's 31 years of age. But yeah, I'm quite happy he's selected, and I'm not sure if he'll get an opportunity or not, but if he does, then yeah, it's good for him. And yeah, basically who do I think is going to win this? I think that India are the overwhelming favorites. I just think that you'd say, despite the fact South Africa don't have a bad attack, I think that India's attack is also, I think both the bowling attacks can cause problems in their own ways, but I just think in batting, if India get the runs, then I'm not sure that South Africa are really going to be able to do that much. And I say that, but the thing is, South Africa, they still have a decent template. I mean, look, it isn't like England where you're looking in Australia right now and you're thinking, who's actually going to get the runs bar Joe Root? In this, I think for South Africa, you've got a decent enough core. You've got, as I said, the players like Elgar and Quinton de Kock, etc. And I think that this series should still be kind of a 300 and you're in the game type of series. Batting will be extremely difficult because you've got 2 good attacks. And I think if South Africa get 300, there's no reason why they can't, win this. And I just think that if it becomes a highest scoring series, I think India will be in the driving seat. But this kind of contradicts the point that I said before. But in a way, with what I've said now, both teams actually have an equal probability of winning the series. But there are other things you have to consider as well. And I think that India, you can't deny that they go into this being the better team and probably have more of a chance of winning this. Now, I want to talk about the whole coach thing. Now, obviously, look, there's a bit of, let's say, kerfuffle in the background with, especially in the white ball setup, where there's a kind of thing where Ganguly said he advised Kohli not to step down as T20 captain, and then Kohli then came out and said he didn't receive that. And actually, I think an hour and 30 minutes before the squads were announced or something, he realized he wouldn't be ODI captain. So there's clearly been this miscommunication. And I do understand why they kind of switched, or rather didn't, or rather removed Kohli from captain and put Rohit, because you wouldn't necessarily want two different captains for a white ball team. I think the vision is usually it is similar. And so, yeah, I actually, I understand why they did put Rohit Sharma, but I guess that in the white ball is kind of a bit of an end of an era, really, because we've seen, well, not that much of an end of an era, but I'm saying he's been captain for 4 years now, and it seems like a lot longer than that because we've been used to him, or certainly I have. And yeah, I look, he will still give his 100% on the field. I think even he said that as well, and even if he didn't say that, we'd all know that. But yeah, I just think that Rohit Sharma being captain will, you could say it could bring a better tactical thing, which before I kind of didn't used to think, just because I didn't want Kohli to not be captain. But now I guess I can kind of agree with that. And I don't think, look, for me it has nothing to do with the whole ICC tournament thing. I just think that Rohit is probably a better tactical captain than Kohli is. And since Kohli leads in the Red Bull team, which I actually think he's the most suited to lead, because rather than kind of any captaincy moves, I think if you lead from the front, which Kohli does, especially with the weight of runs that he scores, I think that he's much more suited to be the Red Bull captain than he is the White Bull captain. So yeah, I don't really mind this change. But as far as the coach is concerned, people saying since Shastri was kind of his contract expired, I think he's been receiving a lot of flack, even when India do, in which they usually do. And here's the one thing that will be in common with these three coaches, Anil Kumble, Ravi Shastri, and now Rahul Dravid, is that they will win most of the time. And I think that tells you something, right? Now, this may just be my view. I'm not sure if anyone else thinks this, but for me, you have the bowling coach, the batting coach, the fielding coach, and the team analyst. What does the head coach actually do? I mean, honestly, if anything, they could just be a babysitter, because with this team, you'd hardly, let alone a series, or hardly lose a game. And you'd kind of, especially with the captain running the team, after a while, the coach isn't going to be able to give inputs on selection that much. And I think you saw with Kohli and Anil Kumble, now we don't know exactly what happened, but I'm saying that I partly think that, look, cricket is a captain's game. The team is the captain's team. It's not like football where you'd say the manager kind of does all the tactics and stuff. The captain has to execute the plans on the field. And I just think that the team is run by the captain in cricket. So with the coach kind of taking, or rather asking for also kind of a more equal authority in that, I'm not saying that would have happened, but maybe that could have resulted in things not going the way it should have done. And so, yeah, I just think that the one thing, as I said, you've got with these three coaches is that whatever they do, whatever their own perks they have, the team's results aren't going to change, because these set of players win a lot of games. And yeah, I just think that Ravi Shastri has been receiving quite a lot of flack because, I don't really think he's... People kind of associate him to be kind of a careless guy, which I don't really get why. I get why, but I'm saying if the team's winning, then he can do what he wants. And I honestly don't think he has to do much anyway, because you've got these set of players who, by the way, maybe if he was a coach in any other team, then maybe, but I'm just, even then, the captain runs a team, and I think that you have to you'd be hoping after a while that you've got the players to execute the skills on the field and win the game. So, yeah, and that was on that. I just think, do I think Rahul Dravid's tenure is going to really change things? It may change a few things. I mean, there may be more... You could... I don't exactly know how it's going to be different, because I personally don't think it is. I do understand why people are kind of happy about it, because, it is Rahul Dravid, but I'm saying that I don't actually think it's going to really cause that much of a shift. I still think that it's going to be the captain, really. I think that Rohit Sharma being captain in the white ball setup will influence the team more than a different coach. Because as I said, you've got the components in batting, bowling, and fielding. And I think the team analyst, out of all the people, I think the team analyst, as far as making plans for oppositions, I think the team analyst would probably have one of the biggest roles. So what would the coach do apart from being a bit of a babysitter? I don't think they'll do that. So yeah, that's many people probably wouldn't think that, but yeah, that's just my view. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe, and please share this video with your friends. And remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?